Welcome to Life in Sirens, Behind and on the Scene, a podcast by first responders. We're your hosts, Sophie,
Jamie,
and Aubrey.
The content provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of any medical institutions, emergency medical services, or healthcare organizations. Patient privacy is a top priority, and all discussions involving real-world emergency situations are de-identified and altered to ensure confidentiality. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional or your local EMS protocols before making any decisions regarding patient care or medical practices. Listener discretion is advised, as some topics may include discussions of real-world emergency situations.
Alrighty guys, welcome to another episode of Life in Sirens. This will be a shorter episode. We're going to call these Fireside Chats, something we are all very fond of, and we get involved in our Fireside Chats. These episodes are going to be, like I said, shorter, and they're going to be EMS hot takes, things that we are super passionate about, and things that kind of come up that we really are excited to talk about. And today it's going to be about leadership. So this will just be a casual conversation about how we're feeling about the current status and climate on leadership in EMS, which is not ideal always. I think we'll take a deep dive into how EMS leadership is not something anyone is ever prepared for, and it's kind of like a last resort. Let's get you off the truck. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I feel like we find ourselves as leaders a lot that got injured. EMS is really tough when it comes to like upward mobility. There's not a lot of places for people to promote to. And so you find yourself with a back injury or knee injury or bum hip or something, and you promote into leadership because you're hurt. And that's not ideal. I'm not sure the solution, because I don't think you should get kicked out of your lifelong career because you got hurt.
Absolutely. And not even necessarily physically hurt, but we're promoting people when their morale is hurt. We're promoting people when they are far too damaged to be leading anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a big problem, like you said, is there's no real lateral or ladder movements. So that is usually the only option. And then because of that, you're promoting people that have no leadership skills. They're just kind of thrust into a position that, in all reality, they don't have any business holding.
Because I think that leadership used to look a lot like experience.
Yeah.
And you only needed experience to be a leader. And I think throughout the years, we've realized that you need a lot more than experience. In fact, experience is only one of the very few, or it's one of the very many skill sets that you need to be able to be an effective leader. And experience, turns out, doesn't hold as much weight as we always thought it did.
Experience doesn't always come with age either.
You can have 100 years worth of life experience.
Absolutely.
And be pretty young.
There are people who have spent 30 years in EMS, and that's all they've done. And there's people who have served a million lifetimes in the last 5 to 10 years and are fully prepared and capable to serve as leaders, and they're not burnt out yet.
Yep. Oh, they still love it. And I'm 5-6 years older than Soph, but she's lived.
I don't know about that.
I think that you've lived far more life than I ever did.
Well, I think that's something we need to move towards. And let's be clear, we're not going to sit here and just complain about terrible leaders, because we have had some phenomenal leaders.
Fantastic.
So let's talk about those real quick.
Absolutely. We've had fantastic leaders with experience. We've had fantastic leaders with years and years of experience, fantastic leaders with some years of experience, and fantastic leaders with not a whole lot of experience in the field.
Yeah, what makes them phenomenal at their job, and it's not typically that they've been just perfect paramedics or just exemplary supervisors. They have had an absolute passion for serving the people that they are responsible for leading. And I think that's one of the biggest things, that you see a gap in between like these leaders that lead because they deserve to be a leader. They deserved the promotion because they've been here forever. We all know leaders like that. And then there's the leaders who are so humbled that they even got chosen.
And those second ones are always the ones that are going to blow you out of the water.
Absolutely. There's the people who are sad to leave the truck to go into a leadership position because they still have passion for the job. And if you wait until the point that you're so burnt out of doing the job on the ambulance to go into a leadership position, you're going to be burnt out at that job because that whole job is caring about the people on the ambulance. If you didn't care about it when you were there, you're not going to care about it when you're removed.
And how do you convince people that are still there to care about it?
Yeah.
When you were over it.
It's like trying to convince someone to love you. You cannot do
You
that.
can't. You can't.
So let's kind of talk about, I think the big question is, how do we prepare people to become supervisors, to become leaders? What qualifications do we put in place? And I think the biggest issue, at least in our state, is there is no standard. Anybody can do it based on an appointment. Like, there is no, like, you have to have these guidelines met. You have to have this leadership course. So what do we do? And one thing that I've been talking about with some colleagues is that we simply add an endorsement. You know, we have an education endorsement. We have a critical care endorsement. Why do we not have a leadership endorsement? Why is there not a bare minimum? And what would that look like?
That would be beautiful. I never even thought about that as an option, but I would love to see that happen. I have a hard time thinking about what we can tangibly do to influence leadership, because there's two folds to it to me. One is like a very personal journey of like self-discovery and self-identifying and figuring out how you learn and how you communicate and how you receive criticism and how you offer criticism.
Absolutely.
And all of those things. And that's a hard thing to make tangible, to measure, and like showing, saying like, hey, you have to have this endorsement.
But part of that, getting that endorsement, is showing that you're going to put the effort in to do that. And if you can do that, surely you care at least a little bit.
I think it would have to be something that there is like some psychology and some theology even integrated into a class.
Absolutely. There needs to be more than just one class, too.
Yeah. And where you're given the tools to learn about yourself. I mean, it is not easy to be introspective and to, kind of search self-actualization. But when you kind of get on that path and you can really figure out like, oh, this is how my brain works. This is why I react aversely to this word or this phrase or this comment.
Well, and I think part of being a leader too is understanding that not everyone is led the same way. And I think one thing we press really hard with leadership for some reason is your personality type. I just think that is bogus.
Yeah.
What on earth? We do personality tests. Okay, that's fine, whatever. We need to teach people how to teach, because leading is teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I think we obviously have the education endorsement. I'm not saying that you would have to have an education endorsement to get your fake leadership endorsement, but I think that there needs to be an education aspect. Like, you are in charge or being charged with so much responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Who do you call when you don't know what to do?
Austin.
He's our captain. Who do you call when you don't know what to do?
You.
Who do I call when I don't know what to do? Wendy. And Austin.
Yeah.
But those are our leaders, and it's because we trust them. But also, I trust that they can teach me what to do.
Absolutely.
Like, I trust that on the phone, and if they can't do it on the phone, they'll show up. That they're not just going to say, no, step back, I got it. And in some cases, that's necessary. But for the most part, they'll say, okay, let me teach you how to manage
They're
this.
going to stand beside me, not in front of me.
Absolutely. And that is the biggest difference in somebody that is a good leader.
Absolutely.
Is that they are interested in your proficiency and their skill. They're not going to gatekeep it. They're not going to keep that from you. They want you to be as good at what they're as good at, which is very cool.
That's a huge... You see that so much in this field, and I think we are hugely a field of a bunch of type A personalities.
Oh, yeah.
And that's even more so when you move up to that supervisory level. But when you move up to that supervisory level, it's obviously even more competitive because there's less spots. But, like, you're already in that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we trying to be better than everyone else in a way of, like, to the point we're trying to be better than other people where we're pushing other people down?
Right.
Like, let's elevate everyone.
Yeah. I've never met somebody that got worse by trying to make other people better.
No.
Like,
it's impressive.
If you elevate
It's
everyone
incredible.
around you, then they also elevate you.
Yes, wow, look at what they're doing.
Like, it is a positive feedback loop.
Absolutely. So, I guess to wrap things up, let's talk about one incredible experience we've had with leadership. I'll go first because I don't want to put anybody on the spot. And this isn't even with a supervisor. It doesn't have to be with a supervisor. I think that we all are leaders in our own right, or should be, especially as paramedics. And I think that we don't always see that, but we are. I mean, we're in charge of a whole truck. We're in charge of a whole life. That's pretty crazy. And I think we need to remember that. We need to teach that. But this is a fun story of the time that I attempted to start my first EJ. And it was with Austin Metter, who is now my supervisor, but he was my partner at the time, and before that he was my field training officer. So I was a new medic, and this would be my first time. I never got the opportunity while I was in school to start an EJ. And I had just gotten out of school, and we were working a cardiac arrest that we had gotten ROSC on. And we were already having a lot of trouble. Fire guys weren't being super supportive in this scenario. It was just very frustrating. I was very frustrated. I was very flustered. Knowing Sophie as a new medic, we can all imagine what was going through my head. I am going to place this EJ, and I just stop. I'm over it. I said, "Can you come here for a second?" And I put his hand over my hand, and I say, "I'm gonna go drive." And instead of him taking the opportunity to literally embarrass the crap out of me, like he absolutely could have, he just said, "Okay." And then we talked about it after, and he was like, "What the heck was that? What was that?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm so sorry for embarrassing you and myself like that." And he was like, "You didn't embarrass me, but you did embarrass yourself." And I was like, "Yeah." We talked about it. A couple weeks later, I had the opportunity again. I did it, and I love EJs now. But I just want to point out that a lot of the times when we're leading or teaching, we love to take the opportunity to embarrass people. Why do we do that? It doesn't work.
And it doesn't feel good. Like, we've all been in that position.
It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good from the person who is doing the embarrassing or who is doing the embarrassing thing. So that is my little soapbox. Don't embarrass people.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, my story is actually not with a supervisor either. It's more recently. We're working on launching like a peer support group in the system that we work in, because it doesn't have one yet.
Super kudos.
Which is pretty cool that we get to just like participate in that. But
Absolutely.
He is another field paramedic. He's critical care. He's actually on the shift before us on the same ambulance. And this is a man that like I've always admired, but he has managed to lead us in this adventure of creating a peer support group with just like absolute grace and flawlessness. And we are a bunch of ADHD human beings. Like,
He really
man,
reins us in, let me tell you.
it is hard to follow a conversation.
Yeah.
And he has been able to come in with kindness and structure and organize our thoughts with us and for us, and keep us on task and make us feel like we are valuable assets to this team. And this man does not have any like former training in leadership, but man, does he just like do it from the heart.
Absolutely.
His name's Zach, and he's just wonderful. And if you ever get a chance to meet him, like,
We love Zach.
you are just blessed.
You
to
will
meet
love
this
Zach.
man. But being led by him has truly been an honor, and watching him lead us as like fellow providers, I just hope that I can like do half as good as he does with all of us.
That's all we could ever hope for.
It's been a very cool experience.
Yeah,
And I'm like both grateful and very, very proud.
100%.
My example of leadership that I'm going to share is actually from a peer. This took place on a very stressful call. This person was an AEMT at the time, but was currently in medic school, and they were asked to do a skill at the height of their current scope. And it was, I can't even adequately express how stressful of a scene this was. And this person, I was an AMT at the time. I was also tending to the patient. And I remember looking at this person in the eyes and seeing zero fear in their eyes. And they did the skill that they were asked to do. And they did it with proficiency and had all the confidence in the world. And it wasn't until much later that I found out that that person was actually their pants.
They always are.
They always are. I thought a lot of them at that moment, and I thought even more of them after I found out how absolutely terrified they were in that moment. And that person was
Sophie.
What? Stop. No, it wasn't. What
Yes.
are you talking about?
I'm talking about the double code.
Oh my God. That call almost ruined my life.
With all four of us.
Whoa. So you know when they say imagine everyone in their underwear? Just imagine your pants, they are too.
And then you will later be in your underwear because you
Yep, exactly.
You know how Austin, he was also present on that call, but you know how he always says like just random country isms that we've never heard before?
Yes.
One time he just told me to be a duck.
What?
Yeah,
Austin, I think I would just be so shocked, I guess, that I would just be like, okay, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm doing that.
He was like, James, you're good.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I've
James.
heard him say this before.
He said, James, you're good. Just be a duck. And I was like, okay, Macon man. His county he's from. But he did. He said, just be a duck. And he just means that like ducks look very, very chill and calm on the surface, which you have mastered, Soph. And then their feet are moving 1,000 miles an hour underneath. And I think that's a very common saying, but I just never heard it so blatantly and so countrily played into my brain. Be a duck. But I think that you like exemplified that on that call.
Yeah.
I think I accidentally mastered that. But thank you. I was really surprised when you said that. Just like I was really surprised any other time I've ever heard that. Well, thank you guys for sharing. I think that it's important to share phenomenal leadership stories, especially when they're not necessarily from supervisor roles. And I think that we hear a lot of complaints about how terrible our supervisors can be because, frankly, they can be. So it's nice to hear the bright side, but that doesn't mean we stop here. Let's keep changing and growing and doing everything we can to promote positive leadership, positive culture. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us.